This story is brought to you by HelloDearReader.com.
This is it, dear listener, the last part. What's going to happen now? How does poor Sophie learns to live without her friend? Part 6. It had been weeks since Sophie was released from the hospital. No one knew why she had been in the plaza hurt and crying. She spent several days hospitalized. Then the visits to therapists began. Her mother took her almost weekly in a vain hope to stop Sophie's nightmares and crying. The first therapist said she had experienced trauma and blocked what had happened. Sophie told the doctor about running away, exchanging letters, running from a monster to then be saved by it. He said her fanciful stories were related to her poor relationship with her mother. He recommended that her mother spend time with her. Her mother was not happy about that. The next therapist said she had manifested the monster in her nightmares, and they became real to her. He assured Sophie they were only a fantasy she had conjured due to her poor relationship with her mother. Her mother became angry about this. The last therapist used many big words Sophie didn't understand. She had recommended drugs and maybe a stay at a hospital. Sophie's mother liked this idea. She also suggested that Sophie and her mother have therapy together first and have some time together. Sophie's mother did not take her back to any more therapists. She decided they didn't know what they were doing. Sophie sat on her front porch, patiently waiting for her mother to return. She was lonely and had been alone for so long. Her one true friend was gone, and she felt she was the cause. No one would listen. No one wanted to believe her. After several therapists, her mother became more aggressive toward Sophie. At first, she thought it would be nice to spend time with her mother, but now she dreaded when her mother came home. A car pulled into the driveway. Her mother swung the door open, still yelling at someone on her cell phone. She opened the trunk and pulled out a plain brown box. She dropped the box next to Sophie, and it whimpered. This surprised Sophie, both the box and the whimper. There weren't any special occasions, so she wasn't expecting a gift. I'm tired of the therapist telling me to spend time with her. I don't have time for this. Her mother yelled into her cell phone on her way into the house. I read an article while getting my hair done, and it said. Sophie didn't hear the rest of the conversation. Sophie opened the box and was startled by a black furry muzzle. It licked her hand and barked as she picked up a small puppy with black fur and a little white streak down its long nose. Holding him up to her face, she looked into his dark eyes. He licked her nose, and she giggled with a big smile. Her friend had returned. Monster, she whispered to the puppy. The puppy growled, my Sophie. Not as tragic as you thought, dear reader? It's my Sophie's 18th birthday. Apparently, that is important to humans today. As always, she and her mother are screaming loudly at each other. This had started to happen more and more since she fell. At 16, Sophie was able to buy the metal carriage thing so we could go for drives. Humans have always loved to wander around. You have never appreciated me, screamed the mother. This was also something that was said often. I hate you, Sophie yelled back, another oft-screamed phrase. Get out. Her mother pointed at the door. You are 18 today. Get out of my house. You could hear them. I screamed in capitals. I knew this was it. My Sophie was going to finally leave. She had often spoken of running away again, but she wasn't running this time. She was leaving. I understood what she meant when she would tell me that. Fine. Sophie screamed back. She grabbed her bag that had her few belongings. We had discussed being prepared for this day. She stormed out of the house to her metal carriage. I both liked and disliked the thing. It was fun to ride in it, but it was dangerous. During this current fight, I had found a nice place in the sun on the front porch. I had grown more than Sophie's mother had wanted, and she often complained of my size. I was the size of something called a Saint Bernard. She threatened to get rid of me many times but never tried. My black fur warmed under the sunlight. After many centuries, I now understood some creatures' desire to lay in the sunlight. It was so relaxing. I don't know what saved me that day, but I'm thankful. My body seems mostly the same. I have black fur and long claws and wings that I keep hidden. I can merge into the shadows as I had done before. But now I can live in the sunlight. I returned to my old home inside the pipe. There was nothing there. The others were gone. All that was left was what little we needed. Scraps of junk, nothing more. I don't know what happened to them, and I don't care. Maybe something ate them, something that was afraid of me. Or maybe they got bored and left. Sophie storming from her house was my cue. I got up and stretched my large body. It was time to ride. I happily ran up to the metal carriage and slipped into the passenger seat. I could barely squeeze myself into it. Sophie got into the driver's seat and slammed the door. I think something fell off the carriage, but that did happen sometimes. She called it a junker. Never come back. The mother screamed from the front porch. Sophie pulled out of the driveway a little more recklessly than I liked, but we soon found ourselves on the interstate. I waited until Sophie spoke first. She was emotional and needed some time. I had the patience of one that had lived many centuries. Let's go see Monty, she said. Agreed, I said, and we travel. You have friends all over the world. I want to meet them all. She had spoken about this before. I was concerned with her use of the word friend. Monty was sort of a friend. Some of the others, not so much. We drove for about an hour before we got to our destination. Monty lived in a place called Point Pleasant. He was always happy to see us. He loved my Sophie as much as I did. And he understood humans more than I did. Or as at least he thought so. He had his own human incident. Sophie combed his short black hair as she told him of her plans. His large red eyes showed the same concern that I had. You know these creatures are dangerous, Monty said in his low hiss. I know, Sophie said as she finished her grooming. Then why go? Monty asked the question I was wondering as well. Because they are there, Sophie said with a smile. Sophie isn't about to take Monty or Monster's advice. She's ready for adventure. Rest assured, we'll be seeing more of Sophie and the monster. Thank you for listening. Please support me by buying the finished novella on HelloDearReader.com. Well, dear reader, there will be more to come. Looks like Monster and Sophie have more adventures ahead of them. Thank you for reading.
Hope you enjoyed the story. Please like and share. See more stories at HelloDearReader.com.